So after 4 years in development hell, no seriously, this was started production in September of 2018, I believe, we have finally gotten the live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Well, the second live-action adaptation. I guess I should briefly talk about the film. It's bad. I did an entire video on it, though. If I were to redo the video, there are probably different things I would say. There are some things I would praise, tiny things, but there are things in there I would praise, and there's more shit that I didn't talk about, so yeah, that's basically all you need to know. Movie's bad. Everybody knows this. So this is not nearly as bad as the movie. Even if this was terrible, I don't think it would be nearly as bad as the movie. And I know some other people are gonna ask in the comments, so I should say it now. No, this is not nearly as bad as Percy Jackson and the Olympians. That show hurt me to my core. This one did not. Mostly. There are a couple things, but overall the show was just whatever. It was just kind of a whatever season of television. And yes, by the time I'm recording this, season 2 and 3 have been confirmed. So I originally shot this where I had to cut it off halfway through, but I had originally recorded this before those were announced, so it's probably a good thing I'm redoing this. And also, if you probably noticed from the title, this is only part 1 because I'm planning to do at least another video, because this is going to be episodes 1 through 4. The next one will be 5 through 8, and maybe I'll do a third one just talking about the characters and world building, because those have plenty of issues on their own. So this episode starts off with a couple of Earth Kingdom spies, I believe, trying to get a message to the Earth King that Fire Lord Sozin is attempting to wage war on the world. And I feel like this scene was just shoved in just to show, hey, our bending looks better than it did in the movie. I feel like that's the only reason it was here. So it felt really pointless, but I will give it credit. It's like, okay, they're trying something different. They don't want to start exactly where the other one left off. They want to do a little bit of setup. That's fine. But the problem with this is that the same thing we learn here is explained several times throughout the rest of the episode. So it feels pointless. But I'm like, fine, I'll give it a pass. But then the next scene really angered me because it showed that this show was trying too hard to be edgy. Because we see one of the guys who gets captured by the Fire Lord roasted alive on screen. This turned into Zack Snyder's Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I think you all know what I think of Zack Snyder movies. And then, another kick in the balls to the original show. Next we cut to Aang's backstory. Now, it already breaks the lore of the original, and I don't mean continuity, I mean the lore, where Aang is just flying around without a staff or his flying bison, which I thought that was made a big deal in Legend of Korra when the stupid airbending villain, I don't remember his name, so I don't care, was flying around without a staff or without a bison. The only ones that have been seen flying like this are the sky bison, so it was an incredible feat for him to be able to do this, but now Aang can just do it just fine. I think it's supposed to hint that he's this big prodigy like they say he is, but you don't have to break lore in order to do that. And as you may have noticed, yes, we're cutting to his backstory before we find him in the Southern Water Tribe. Now, again, I don't want them to do this exactly how the original show did it, but it's gotta be changes that make sense, because not only does the next scene where the Fire Nation attacks, it's a cool scene to see, but again, it's trying too hard to be edgy and has some really shitty dialogue. Like, Fire Lord Sozin is fighting, what's his name? Gyatso. He's fighting Gyatso, and his actual line is, any other night you would have won this fight, but we have the power of the comet! That's the line, and that's the delivery. It made me laugh my fucking ass off. It was hilarious. But the entire point of the show, it was showing Aang and Zuko's backstory simultaneously, drawing a parallel to them, showing how their destinies are intertwined before their destinies literally become intertwined when the show begins. And Zuko seeing Aang, like seeing the light that comes from him, is still way too convenient here. I know it wasn't the animated show, but I didn't like it there either, where he just happened to see it. He just happened to be in this remote section of the world where the Avatar ended up being here and ended up being freed. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I know some people are going to use the destiny excuse, but that doesn't work in this scenario. It's just a huge contrivance that it just doesn't work. It isn't necessarily detrimental to the original show, the movie, or the show, but it still is way too convenient for my liking. So back to Aang's backstory, we see by the time he's broken out of the ice by Sokka and Katara, the entire point is that it's just an entire mystery. Who is this kid? Where is he from? What was he doing in the ice? That's all supposed to be a mystery up to that point, and even if you haven't seen the animated show, you'd probably be thinking, wouldn't it be a lot cooler if we didn't know who this kid was or what his backstory is? Here, we know who he is, we know his backstory, we know he's the Avatar, we know he's an Airbender, we know how he got in the ice, so there's no mystery here. They should have at least flipped these scenes. Like, maybe have Sokka and Katara find him, and then go to the backstory, maybe when he's captured by the Fire Nation. So, there are character issues all throughout this show. There's one in particular that I'll get into in the next video because it's more prevalent there, and I'll just spoil it right now, it's Commander Zhao. But I'll get more into him in the next one. Iroh is perfect. Acting, look, performance, lines, all perfect for Iroh. Zuko looks perfect here, and this has destroyed that stupid-ass argument that Percy Jackson show defenders made of they can't get actors to look exactly like they did in the book or in the original source material. Bullshit. Every single person in this show looks exactly like their animated counterpart. It's insane how close they are. And Zuko especially, so like anybody who complains that, oh, they just casted someone who looks like Annabeth, you could have gotten somebody who looks like Annabeth. If they can make Zuko look as close as he did to the animated show, because I didn't know how that was going to translate to live action, it translated surprisingly well. Although I will say that as much as these characters do look the part, their acting is good. It's good. The problem is that when their dialogue is complete ass, which is about 45% of the time, their performances kind of mirror that. When they have decent dialogue or decent lines, or even just passable lines, the acting is pretty good. Sokka in particular, when he becomes more like the book character in the later episodes, his acting improves. So it's almost like he wasn't given the right direction in these early episodes. And this is the same problem I had and a lot of other people had with the movie version of Sokka, or Sokka in that version, that he was too serious. This Sokka has barely any jokes, and the entire point of his arc in this show is that he learns that he doesn't have to be a warrior, he wants to become an engineer, which shows up later in the Omashu episode, which I'll get back to in a little bit. And his arc, and it's a decent arc for him to have, but the problem is, they cut out another arc of his, which everybody knew ahead of time was the sexism arc. Which, again, had they not made a big deal about that before the show came out, I probably wouldn't have even noticed. Because the movie did the same thing. They just kind of cut it out, but they didn't make a big deal about, oh, look how progressive we are. So that's what really pissed me off about it, is that they're touting that they cut something essential from the character for the sake of progressive ideology. Fuck off, Netflix. And then there's Katara, who's, in the show, she's supposed to be this really motherly figure to a lot of people in the show, and she's supposed to have a lot of compassion, but she also has a lot of bent-up anger that comes out every once in a while, especially in the battle with Master Paku, which, again, I'll get into the next video. That's all gone. Katara is a blank slate in this. And I can't blame the actress, because her performance is fine, but she has no character whatsoever. She is a 100% fill-in-the-blank character. It's like, this show reminds me a lot of the Disney live-action remakes, where they're missing a ton of the characterization, but that's okay, because the people who have seen the original show will fill it in for us, right? Screw you. I hate when the Disney remakes do that, especially ones like Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, and Mulan, and Little Mermaid did it. This one did the exact same fucking thing. So, getting back to the episode, the green screens in this show are awful. Now, the CGI itself is pretty bad, but there's some points where it looks pretty good, like the Fire Nation ships look pretty good, and something in episode 8 looked really cool that I thought was going to look really bad. It ended up looking pretty good, but I'll get to that when I get there. But for this episode, especially when Sokka and Katara are like zipping through the ice when they hit the really big current, holy hell, that green screen looks awful. And we'll get more into that when we get to Omashu. But right now, CGI just looks bad. I mean, the bending CGI, the water looks inoffensive. It's not great, but it's inoffensive. Same thing for the fire. Again, the air looks whatever. The earth bending looks awful in this show. And it showed from the first scene. It's like, they're trying to show off how much faster the bending is, but it's like, your effects are worse than the movie. And this had the same budget as Percy Jackson, yet looks far better than Percy Jackson. So that shows that show had absolutely zero excuse for looking as bad as it did. So, there's some other things I had on here originally, back when I saw episode 1, like for some reason Aang already has the bison whistle, but it is explained, and I do like the explanation that they give, so I can give that a pass. But then the grandmother recites the original, monologue for the show, the original opening for the show, and honestly, I hate to say this, the actress is not very good. She's pretty bad here, and it's like, why wasn't this just the opening? Because the opening of this episode was Avatar Kyoshi making a different version of it, and what was the point? I don't know why this show was so obsessed with Avatar Kyoshi for the first 2 episodes. Like, Roku was supposed to be the one he constantly talked to, and they do have him talk to several different avatars throughout the show, like, depending on where he is, so that was improved, but it just seemed like they were just saying, at first it felt like they were saying, fuck Avatar Roku, let's use Kyoshi for some reason, but they did save it later on, so I'll get back to that. And if you're wondering why I'm having to, like, lean over at my notes, for some reason it's really shadowed over here. I don't know what the reason is, but yeah, so I'm having trouble seeing it. And Aang kind of already figures out that he's been gone 100 years, and that all the Airbenders are dead. Now, in the anime show, he did find out that he was in the ice for 100 years, but he also finds out that the Airbenders are dead already, which kind of kills the impact of seeing all of them dead when he gets to the air temple. It's like, we already know this. Why are we supposed to feel, why is this supposed to be such a big shock when we already know this? It wasn't like he was going back and he realized the people he knew were dead, but there's still a ton of airbenders around. All of them are dead, and that's supposed to be a huge, like a huge punch to the gut for Aang, yet it doesn't feel like it. Especially not to the audience. So, and again, back to the CGI, the establishing shot of the crashed ship, I swear to God, it looked like it was out of this show. And I don't mean that as a compliment. It looked like it was hand-drawn animation. It looked that bad. But the rest of the ship scene was fine. The escape from the Fire Nation vessel is even worse than the movies. Because the movie, at least he has to take out a couple guards with some airbending. He actually has to escape Zuko and Iroh. Here, he just runs away and gets on his glider while they shoot fireballs at him. And for some reason, a fireball hitting his staff doesn't torch it. Like, his staff is made of wood, yet it hits by a big ball of fire, and it's perfectly fine. Also, something else I forgot to mention, with Sokka and cutting out his big sexism arc, the soldiers that he has, like, recruited, remember in the show how that was supposed to be a funny joke where they're all, like, 4 to 6 years old? There are people in that little squad that are the same age as him. So that kind of, again, they're just removing all of the comedy for some reason, and there's even girls in that group too, so that goes even more into just killing that. And then the Avatar state looks so bad. Like, they do, I don't know if they applied CGI to the kid's face, or if he was entirely CGI. He looked like he aged like 10 years when he went into the Avatar state. It looked awful, it looked fake as shit. And the black snow is missing. Again, that's a minuscule detail, but it still feels like that's supposed to be the big warning that the Fire Nation are coming, so where to go. And one thing I really don't like about this is that instead of going to the Northern Water Tribe to find a bending master, they're going because Kyoshi, in the second episode, we're moving on to that one, she tells him that he has to go there to prevent a great tragedy. Really, we're going off the thing of he gets shown a vision of something, and he has to go there to stop it. We're going with that. I mean, I kind of knew that already, but the way they handled it was somehow even worse than I thought it would be. And then with the Kyoshi episode, there's some old woman who runs the village that's kind of a bitch the entire time. It's like, why is she even here? It's like, she doesn't like the fact that there are outsiders within their village, and even telling the Avatar to fuck off. Like, really? What was the point of this? Just to pad out the fucking running time. And yeah, I already made the thing of, like, it's supposed to be Roku, but they changed it to Kyoshi. But again, they fixed that later on. It's like, he talks to Roku and Karuk, like, in the different nations and everything. So, that, again, a lot of these problems I had were fixed by later episodes. And the Kyoshi episode is just straight up boring. They are there for far too long. And I know they're there to try to build up the relationship between Sokka and Suki a bit more, which is appreciated, because their relationship did seem pretty rushed in the original show, at least in that episode. In season 2 and 3, they're a great couple. They're probably the best one in the show, but it did feel rushed. So here, I appreciate that they took a bit more time. Also, I am glad that they didn't put Sokka in drag. I do appreciate them holding restraint on that, of making Sokka look like an idiot. So, then there's the third episode. I guess I should say the second episode we're introduced to Zhao. I'll talk about his character more, but for some reason they made him this guy who's just in the corner of the world. He's still a commander, but he's like a lower-ranking commander instead of this, as Iroh puts in the animated show, the Great Commander Zhao. Trust me, I'll have more to say on him later on, because, oh my god, this was the character they fucked up the most. Even more so than Sokka, more than Katara. And episode 3, we're introduced to Azula. Why is she here? I have no idea. She doesn't actually contribute until the last 2 episodes of the show, and even then, all that does is just take away from, you guessed it, Admiral Zhao at that point. It just takes away from Zhao being smart and competent in any capacity. Again, we'll get back to that in the next video. But he's just a puppet for Azula at that point. So why was she even here? And Mei and Ty Lee are here, because of course they are. They don't really do anything. And all the characters just seem off. Not that the actresses were bad. They were actually pretty good. But Azula just feels wrong for some reason. I know there's going to be a ton of Avatar fans that are like, what do you mean she felt wrong? I don't know how to explain it. She just felt wrong. And Mei and Ty Lee, it's like, again, the actresses were fine, but it almost seems like their dialogue trying to be, one being this really happy, preppy girl all the time, and the other one just being, like, emotionless the entire time. Just felt forced, almost. And again, it was with the dialogue, not the acting. And Mei actually does show plenty of emotion later on in a scene. I don't even remember which episode it was, but later on, so that kind of kills her entire point. Or at least the point of her personality. So, this episode is very interesting because it combines several episodes, which I am 100% okay with. They go to Omashu, and because Aang thinks he sees an airbender, but it's the kid who has the little glider with his wheelchair. Again, I don't remember his name, but they combined Omashu with the mechanic. I was going to say mechanist, but it's mechanist, or mechanic. And they also combine it with something I was really hoping would not be in this show, and that's Jet. Now, Jet is an odd case here, because at first I thought they were doing him better, but then they made him worse than the animated show. It's like, it was a complete 180, and it was really fucking bad. So, yeah, we get the bitching between Sokka and Katara of Sokka realizing Jet's crazy asshole, and Katara knowing that the mechanic is a traitor. And Aang and the kid working together and instead of them, like, drowning an entire city in order to take out some Fire Nation soldiers, they're throwing in bombing attacks to try to take out spies. And that's a decent change, especially if you're changing it to Omashu. But oh my god, the green screens in this fucking environment hurt me to my core. Especially in one case where after the first bombing attack, you see a shot of Sokka and Katara, and there's the green screen behind them of what just exploded. It was like a fan film. It looked like this green screen behind me, because you know that's not there. That's what it looked like. Honestly, I think this one looked more realistic. But holy hell, that absolutely hurt. And then, so I like how they combine these stories. And then there's a fight between Aang and Zuko, where they have to use just regular martial arts, because Zuko doesn't want to give away that he's a firebender, and Aang doesn't want to give away that he's the Avatar. So that's pretty clever, but the fight itself kind of sucks. It's really poorly shot and edited. I can't really see half the choreography. And then Aang gets arrested and taken to the King of Omashu. And I like that Iroh, they're looking for a firebender, and Iroh distracts them by pretending he was the one who shot the fire, because he is also a firebender, so that Zuko can escape. I really like that, and it plays right into Iroh's character. And that plays into the 4th episode with Bumi. Now, this show has a lot of the same problems, or at least has some of the same problems as Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And not just in the terrible exposition and shitty effects, because the exposition in this, there is way too much, just like Percy Jackson. Like, 80% of the dialogue in this is exposition, which I guess is better than Percy Jackson, which was 95%, so upgrade. But twists are given away immediately, like the backstory of Aang, and then the twist of Bumi. he finds out who it is immediately, and at least unlike Percy Jackson, he doesn't figure out based on fuck all. He exhibits traits that were very similar to Boomy, so he's able to figure it out through context clues. And that I really like, and also, much like Percy Jackson, shoving shit into early, like Azula, and something we get into in the next episode. And I'm okay with how they handled Boomy here, because he's having Aang do these tasks. Sokka and Katara are not kidnapped, although this does lead to one really stupid line, where Katara says, "I found him, Aang's in prison." Well, now how the fuck did you find him? But, either way, so Katara and Sokka go through the Cave of Two Lovers. And they see the little hippies, like, before they enter the cave, so I'm like, don't tell me we're doing the Cave of Two Lovers, and that's exactly what they're doing. And before someone makes an incest joke, no, it's very similar to what Frozen did, where it means sibling love, not, Because I know someone's gonna make that joke in the comments, so just don't fucking bother. But I'm okay with how they did this, especially since we don't have to suffer through that in Season 2. I thought it was really stupid when I first did it, but I like how they did it, even though this entire episode is just Sokka and Katara bitching at each other. And they're both right, which in most cases would be cool, but in this case, Sokka's trying too hard to be a hard ass, he's trying to be an adult, but he's also being a dick, and Katara is just being a whiny little kid. She's acting like a whiny brat, and it's annoying. They're both obnoxious. I can't stand these characters, and again, thankfully, at least Sokka gets better. Katara has no character arc in this whatsoever, so that doesn't really mean anything, but Sokka gets better, especially after the next episode. And the bending fight between Aang and Boomy is pretty good. It's not great, but it's decent. Again, at least the bending fights in this still aren't great, but at least unlike the movie, there isn't a scene where 6 earthbenders do a synchronized dance just to float a rock smaller than the size of your average football, so at least there's that. Again, I saw a review that said this is really coasting by on being better than the movie, and it really is, because I feel like I've been praising this a lot more than I should, because it's not great. There's a lot of issues, the effects look like garbage, the characters have no personality except for Iroh and Zuko. The bending fights are okay, but they're still not great. The story is rushed, and there's a shitload of exposition. The acting is hit and miss, and I don't mean like some are good, some are bad. Everybody is both good and bad depending on what they're given, depending on what they're told to say and do. It's really weird. And so, that's the first 4 episodes of this, and again, what I will say, the last 3 episodes of this show, 6, 7, and 8, I enjoyed a lot more than the rest of this, but trust me, I did not like the next episode. I did not like episode 5, so be on the lookout for that video within the next couple days, but this took me a long time to make because I kept having to redo this for certain reasons. But yeah, first 4 episodes, kind of a mixed bag, but I'm curious to see, or I'm not curious to see, I've seen what happens, but I did think the show improved in the second half, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So let me know what you guys thought of the first 4 episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.